Right, so that's it. So we are live at the moment. So, guys, welcome, welcome, welcome to Stop Sweeping Under the Carpet. I have a very special guest for you today, and her name is Hina Jujo. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Um, we're going to be talking about how children abuse their parents. Now, it's not a subject that I've spoken about before, so I'm quite looking forward to hearing what Hina has to say. So, before we start, Hina, would you just like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody, and thank you so much for having me on, Jacqueline. It's my pleasure. My name is Hina Junejo, and I am a relationship and an empowerment coach. That's my introduction, a brief
Oh, wow.
introduction.
Okay, okay, I thought we were going to go a bit deeper in that. Okay, so as I said, I'm an advocate against domestic abuse, and you are too. And I'm also love empowering women, young women, and girls.
Mhm.
Um, but people definitely know me as talking about domestic abuse. So I would like you to share with us today your experiences with regards to abuse, based on how. Well, let's start off with how abuse started with yourself, if that's okay, and then how children end up abusing their parents, because I think it's something that people, our viewers would be interested in knowing.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Okay, so Jacqueline, let's think. Where do we begin from? Right. So I think I'm one of those silly women who get divorced even before they get married, and
Oh,
what means and what that means is
hmm.
divorce. Very very consciously and very, what would I say, out of eagerness and very happily we get we divorce our freedom in order to get married to oppression, in order to get married to coercion, to power, to control, to submission, to objection, to stigmas, to labels, to unreal expectations,
Mm,
and really, what is marriage all about? It's two
mm,
people coming together, for life,
yeah.
in sickness and in health. But as
Mm,
opposed to that, I was married to, what would I say, a system or a product of a system.
mm,
And I
mm,
eventually was forced to become a product of the same system as well, in the
mm,
sense being able to accept the infidelity, the drug abuse, the alcohol influence, and all of that.
mm.
So yeah, day in and day out, that's what the norm used to be in the house. And it was a do and die situation for them, pretty normal, nothing wrong. If anybody, I was the misfit. And when I say unreal expectations, being married to unreal expectations, it's one of those things, culturally, we come from a patriarchal society, and when we
Yeah.
get married, our parents tell us, or they hand us over to another person with an expectation that right now, daughter, you're going to get married, and it's a woman's responsibility to
Mm,
make that marriage work. So you
wow.
see, that's a huge pressure, huge responsibility, even before the game has started.
Mm, yes.
I'm
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
finding it. Oh my God, my weakened people's shoulders. Am I going to be able to take the brunt, take the pressure? But anyway, I hadn't known that I've divorced my freedom. I just thought I've married and I've married freedom. It was only when I stepped into it that I realized that, wow, I was really, really silly. Got divorced first and then got married and then again got a
Right.
real divorce.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
divorce,
Yeah.
marriage, divorce, that's what my life has been all about. And
Mm,
yeah, obviously, when you're married to a person, who believes in indulging in alcohol 24/7, and doesn't see anything wrong in infidelity, and also is under the influence of drugs, obviously, the state of mind is not going to be real, it's not going to be normal.
mm,
So they would be expecting, from their wives to literally obey them,
yeah.
submit to them and obey them. If they
Mm.
say it's night, you just have to say, yeah, it's night, regardless it's day, it's morning,
It's
that
interesting
kind
how
of
you use
thing.
the word obey.
Yeah,
Obey, because right off the bat, you are, I don't know, programmed to obey
yeah.
your partner.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and that programming comes from the culture. As I mentioned, that we come from a patriarchal culture, patriarchal society, and
Mm,
male chauvinism again is a feather in the cap, sadly.
mm,
And things still haven't changed, Jacqueline. It's been 11 years that I'm out of that 12 long years turbulent relationship, whereby I saw all sorts of abuse. It was physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all sorts of abuse. And out of out of all these four, the one that's most, what would I say, worse off amongst the other four is the mental conditioning, the mental abuse that you receive from them, because they force you, or they forced me, to see the world from their lens. So anything that was against my values, against my belief system, was working for them. So, as I mentioned, that they didn't see nothing wrong in fidelity. They didn't see anything wrong with me sharing my husband with, daily with a different woman. Whereas for me, I never imagined this, coming from the kind of background I was coming from, even though the culture is the same, the society is the same, but it was the case of class system, if you like. I came from, mediocre, educated, highly educated background. And my ex-husband came from a, political background. So that was the only difference there, so-called elite, if you like. So that's what I had to, bear with. And yes,
can I just interrupt and ask you, I know you mentioned spiritual abuse, and I know that I was speaking to a lady named Seema a couple of weeks ago when I was interviewing her. I wonder if you can elaborate a little bit more about how the spiritual abuse takes place, because I know Seema touched on it when I was interviewing her, but could you elaborate a little bit more about spiritual abuse?
Yeah, so basically they force you to believe that whatever goes against your faith is, okay. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. So basically they just remove the, element of faith, your core from within you. And if you, obviously, if somebody takes, if somebody had to take the core or the center of your life or your heartbeat from you, how would you become then? Just like a sausage, on a day-to-day basis. And so much so that I'd given birth to 3 children, and then the pressure on me was as such, that element of fear, constant fear and mental conditioning, that what if at some point in time she opens her mouth and she retaliates and talks against or whatsoever, because obviously they knew that I'm not used to this kind of an environment. So they had to, put me under constant fear factor as well. So from there on, the most fearful factor for me was, to have been taken or say my kids being taken away from me. That was a threat that I used to get very, very often, that if you say something to anybody, if you complain to your parents, we're going to take your children away from you. That's one thing. And I suppose, when people generally ask me, Hina, you seem to be quite switched on, and now you're so very, very proactively working for the rights of women, we can't believe that you've stayed in that relationship for 12 long years. So if,
sorry to interrupt, but this just goes to show that for those women who are in abusive relationships, that they think that this is going to be their life forever. And when I talk to, the likes of yourself and other ladies, they're just, you are just a prime example that it's not forever. Do you know what I mean?
Nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. It's just one of those things that as humans, we become comfortable with whatever we're familiar with. So even if it's wrong, even if it doesn't serve us, over the period of time, we become familiar with it and it becomes normal to us. So just imagine the state of mind of the person, that something, they're being abused day in and day out, 24/7 in some shape or form, but still they feel as though they feel safe in that environment, and they can't see beyond. If they had to step out, they'd start feeling uncomfortable, and that's not a good headspace to be in. That means that person has been subjugated to so much fear, and so much mental conditioning has gone in, that now they've completely in all what would I say, in all respects, they've given up on their faith. Whichever faith they were born in, they're there with that. However, they're being crushed, they're being believed not to follow those principles, not to follow that belief system, because that goes against these people's belief system, and the element of fear. So it's one of those things that obviously I've suffered a lot. I've suffered being beaten up. He used to come back drunk and under the influence, and I dare not say anything against him. But the saddest part is that, when I eventually got my freedom back, and then again, that's another story that we can discuss at a later stage, because getting that freedom, getting that divorce, was again another battle that I needed to win. And then again, the children's custody was a battle as well, and lots has gone in it. But
can I just ask, so that the audience have a different side of things? How did I know you're saying that your community is a tight knit community and it's very hierarchical. Is that the right word? What about your parents? Their parents, were they supportive of you? Were you able to tell them what was going on, or did you just suffer in silence?
Yeah. So as I mentioned that, my ex-husband was a product of a system. So a system encompasses, everybody literally around in their community from their background. So parents obviously were the product of the same system. Then their parents were the product of the same system. So this kind of a lifestyle, if you like, keeps on carrying upon, generations upon generations. So they were all very, very used to it. They were accustomed to it. It wasn't new to them. That was a lifestyle to them.
Yeah.
And I was totally, I was brought up in a totally different environment, looking at all of this as completely wrong, So then it was literally like I had to lose myself. I had to lose my identity in order to adapt, to their way of living. So that was where I was. I'd lost my identity. My belief system had been completely ripped off me. My, so much self-doubt, so much gaslighting, that I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. As long as he's just willing to keep me under that roof with my children, I'm okay. I can take all of this, for 12 long years. Right. And for the sake of my children, I kept on, carrying along. I didn't want them to suffer. I thought it was just me suffering. And if I be quiet, my kids will not suffer. They have been, born in this kind of what would I say, a instinctively rich family, wealthy family. They'll be given all the perks that their father enjoys, their cousins enjoy, and they'll be living a comfortable life, roaming around in these jeeps with gunmen around them. And that was the environment, really. Because obviously I had been subjugated to believe that, this is what life is all about in this system. You either do or you die. So we'd rather do it than die. And your children will have to do the same. So I thought, right, if this is the way going forward, and this is the, story to success or key to success, then my children need to be a part of it as well. And in my heart of hearts, I used to also think that when my boys grow older, perhaps they'd be able to support me and stick up for me. So I've just been waiting for that time to come, really. But that didn't happen, Jacqueline. That never happened. My narrative was that in this relationship, it's just me who's suffering, and I'm trying to give my children a good future. However, what really happened was, children, whatever that they're exposed to from the age of 0 till 6, that becomes that exposure, be it at home, be it amongst their peers, be it with, through their role models, be it from the community, their teachers at school. All of that exposure becomes part and parcel of their belief system. So what were my children being exposed to? They were being exposed to abuse day in, day out. They knew that our mother's position is as such that back at home, we do get domestic staff to work around in the house and do chores for us. And my situation or my status was as such that purposely I was, being busied with doing the house chores 24/7, so that the bonding with the children doesn't happen. I'm busy in the kitchen most of the time. I'm busy in the house doing the house chores. So the children never got their mother with them till the point when they had to go to sleep. So there was no bonding, and they're growing older in a toxic environment. So what's going to end up happening? They're picking up on that exposure. They're picking up on those vibes. So basically, you're nourishing another vicious cycle. And I'm thinking I'm trying to give them a good future. So what would you expect, Jacqueline, for those children to grow older? Obviously, they're going to repeat the same vicious cycle, because that's what they're familiar with.
Exactly. Can I just go back a bit? Can I just backtrack a bit? You mentioned a lot of gaslighting, and that's a term that I've used because I've written a book, and that's a term that I wrote in my book. And a lot of people don't understand or have never heard of the term gaslighting. So can you just give us an idea or an example of what gaslighting is and how you were affected by it?
Yeah, I mean it's a terrible, thing to do. It's like literally making somebody feel as though they're crazy.
Yeah,
Whatever that they say is wrong. You'll start doubting yourself. Even if you've
yeah,
seen something, witnessed something from your own eyes, you would be made to believe that no, it never happened.
yeah.
So to the point that you get into the lowest level of self-esteem, you start doubting yourself. You
And then you
start
think
getting
you're going crazy.
exactly,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Your identity gets crushed to the point that you're a nobody, but you
Mm.
are somebody. You are a nobody, but you are somebody, and that somebody is a crazy one, and that's what you are.
Right, 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 exactly. So what advice um, would you give to a woman or a young girl out there who is in a relationship that is abusive? Um, you know, a lot of people, as you just said, they will stay for the sake of the children, but it's not benefiting the children. So what would you say to that for someone else who's thinking exactly the same thing? Oh, I'm going to stay for the sake of my children. What would you say to them?
Yeah. So my first suggestion to them would be, even before you jump into a relationship, every relationship has healthy boundaries, healthy emotional boundaries. So you need to, be able to set those boundaries in the beginning of your marriage. Have your expectations very, very clear with your other half. Tell them that these are my 2, 3 core values. Don't have a ridiculously long list, otherwise you
Yeah,
wouldn't even be able to breathe. You'd literally be stepping onto the other person's toes. I mean, you'll be living your life on it. What did I
yeah,
do? The other
yeah,
person will be like, have I married a mad hatter? Just go
yeah.
away. Go where you came from. But yeah, so it's very important to specify your core values. This is what makes me comfortable with you or with any other person in a relationship, and that's my safe space. And as
Mm,
Maslow's hierarchy says, the first hierarchy, set of hierarchy, is the basic needs, where there's a need for every human being to feel safe and secure.
yeah,
And if you can't feel safe and secure in your own house with the most intimate relationship that you have with your spouse, where else would you feel safe, right? So you
exactly.
need to set those healthy emotional boundaries, underpinned by your values, your belief systems, your principles, that this is who I am, and this is what is acceptable to me, and this is what isn't acceptable to me, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be the basis for relationship. Now,
Mm,
going forward, obviously, now that you've made a framework, and obviously these things need to be negotiated mutually. They need
mm,
to be negotiated mutually and mutually agreed upon as well, right? So
mm,
whatever your spouse is comfortable with, you do that. Whatever you're comfortable with, he needs to do that. At the end of the day, you're both together for a higher purpose. So you've
mm,
now set a framework for yourself. But then
absolutely.
again, going forward, on the face of it, lots of people say, yeah, we agree, we will abide by that. But then the ground reality is that, after a couple of months, whenever the novelty wears off, they will start backtracking. They will start stepping on your toes, and all those core values and everything goes out of the window. The healthy emotional boundaries go out of the window. They would start I would say unconsciously doing the same thing to you, because
Mm,
usually it's been seen that the perpetrator, anybody who abuses, has been abused themselves in their past,
right.
either
Yeah,
in
in
their childhood
some,
or their,
yeah,
yeah. So they're just basically unconsciously repeating the same cycle. So even if
yeah.
you have to tell them that, look, this is what you've done right now is wrong. Yeah, it's
Mm,
bad, out of order. It's not in alignment with my vision or my values. They wouldn't agree. They'd
mm,
say, no, you're wrong because you're looking at it from your lens. You're not looking at it from my perspective, from my lens. Although a third party, when you take the case to them, they would say that, yeah, it's completely wrong.
yes,
It's
absolutely.
yeah, but they're doing it unconsciously and they definitely need help. So until and unless you're not able to identify that there is a general problem, how will you come up with the solution? So most of the
Mm,
time, because it happens at an unconscious level, people don't pick up on it. They're not willing to, agree that, yeah, there is a problem. So that's one thing. So
right.
when this becomes a habit, you can only give, few chances to the other person,
Yeah.
because during this time when a relationship is, in the process of making, if it's going downhill, most of the times what happens is during that making process, you have another soul in the making as well, if you like. you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my advice would be take your time, when you've been recently married, when you set the boundaries, you've made the framework, then go into it with complete faith, give it your best, but at the same time be mindful. Nobody
Absolutely.
has the right to step on your toes. Nobody has the right to go on the other side of that safe boundary that you've set for yourself. So when you feel
Absolutely.
things, yeah, so when you feel that things are going downhill, a couple of times, you need to then sit together, revisit, like, right, this is what we had agreed upon, but this is
Mm.
what we've done. So if after a couple of times communicating to them, if the same thing keeps repeating, then I'd suggest have a mediation done,
Yeah.
involve a third party. But if things don't even work out, that way, then you will have to think of damage limitation strategy. So what
Mm.
that means is either step out of it completely, or then wean off or step out. Because never ignore a problem. When there is a problem, by ignoring it, you may be able to use your coping mechanism and move forward one day at a time. But that doesn't mean that the problem is gonna,
Go
get favored. It's not
there.
gonna get solved.
Yes.
Rather,
Absolutely.
much rather, it can become, really, really nasty and be thrown back in your face at some other point. So don't
Yeah.
wait for that time to have time to come, because in the process, then you'll probably be giving birth to children, and then
Yeah.
they're going to be suffering. So my suggestion there would be that set your boundaries and then give them sufficient chances. And then where you feel that, right, this is not working for me, call it quits. Don't give the other person
Absolutely.
a chance to ruin your life and your generation's life, because you see,
Absolutely.
you will be vulnerable at that point. You will be in the victim mode. You wouldn't be able to think anything else. So rather than, living a abusive life for, say, God knows how many years, it's best to start from scratch as
Yeah.
soon as possible.
And
If
this
you
is,
can't.
and this is what we're trying to say. I mean, I just want to quickly jump in here because we've had someone that's joined us. Her name is Zakaria. Is it
All right.
Zakaria? Yeah, she's joined us, and she said 100%. She totally agrees with what you're saying, and she's also saying, beautiful advice. Mashallah, mashallah. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Pronounce that correctly.
Okay, yeah, mashallah. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for joining us, Zakaria. Hope you're doing well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for those of you who are just jumping on, I'm talking to Hina today, and we're talking about domestic abuse. Well, abuse. Well, we're going to be starting to talk about children abusing their parents. So maybe we can get onto that bit there, because I was going through Facebook and I came across the video, and I clicked the link to the YouTube video, and I'm like, wow, do you know what I mean? I have to contact you. I have to talk about this, because in my research, I've talked about children abusing their parents. I have a neighbor who I've heard the child abusing the mother. Do you know what I mean? So can we touch on that? Can we sort of like mention about that?
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned earlier, that you're in all your good faith trying to continue for the sake of the children, but in the end, it's not going to be beneficial for the children, because children are picking up the same pattern. So what then
Yeah.
happens is they are seeing their mum as a subject and as an object to be insulted. And obviously, it's what would I say, a patriarchal society. So male chauvinism is literally embedded to the core, right? So when the child is growing older, seeing that, then they feel that inherently this is their right to treat their mom the same way.
So can I ask, that clip in the video where the son is asking the mum for money?
Yeah.
Explain about how that came about then.
Yeah, so basically, these are the little examples that we're trying to, create awareness around in the community, that this would also fall under the remit of emotional and physical and mental abuse for a mom. Because as a boy, in that video, say, for example, my son in the video is snatching the handbag from me because he asked me for some money. And I really didn't have money at that point. Or even if I did, I just asked a simple question, son, that why do you need the money for? You understand? He's coming from outside, and the first thing, he doesn't greet me, doesn't ask how am I doing, because clearly it seems like I'm sitting and I'm kind of concerned, and I've just given up on everything in life. So the first thing for a child would be to come sit and caress them, or make them feel comfortable, speak to them nicely, greet them, and then that's fine. If you want to ask for something, ask for something. Don't
Mm.
tell them, ask them. And if they're willing, they agree, that's fine. They'll give it to you, willingly. But if they're asking you a question, as an answer to that question, you can't push them away, snatch their bag, take the money out, and off you go.
Yeah,
An
yeah,
abuse. So that's just one form of abuse. And for
yeah.
that matter, I can give you, I mean, it's real, it's there, it's definitely there in our
It
community.
happens.
I can give you my own house example if you like. I mean, it's been a couple of times that, boys have come from outside and I've made lovely meal for them, but I
Mm.
don't know what has happened with them out in the community, amongst their peers or whatever that they're going through.
Mm.
And if something, some spice, or if they don't like the taste of the food, they just throw the food away and walk off.
Oh, wow.
They'll shout and they'll abuse. They'll, literally take the whole house on the roof. And so you
And
see,
these are children at a young age doing this,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. This is like boys I'm talking about the age of 21 and 19, you
Yeah,
see. So now what am I supposed to do then, Jacqueline?
yeah.
Tell them off, slap them. What should I do to make them understand? Because I know they're helpless themselves. They're
Mm.
not doing this, consciously, purposely to hurt me. No, they
Mm.
basically, they're vulnerable themselves. A lot is going on in their own world, which I can't understand. They're leaving home in a state of vulnerability. When they go out, what kind of a lifestyle are they living? What's
Mm.
happening in their inner circle of friends, external circle of friends? I don't know. It's
Mm.
only they who know, and God knows best. So what should my stance be then? I
Mm.
can't, if I feel as though they abused me is wrong, I can't do the same thing. I
Yeah.
can only, what I can do is just keep on making dua, keep on making,
Sort of like
uh,
22.
praying for,
Yeah,
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 just praying
yeah.
for their guidance, if you like, and then just keep doing what a, mother should. Just try
Mm.
to support them emotionally, get them around, whenever they're ready for it, hug them, bring them around, talk to them about what happened with them throughout the day. Most of the times they wouldn't open up. But as a one-off, again, whenever they want something from me, they will open up, now wonder whether that's the truth or they're just making stories.
Yeah,
But yeah, there you go. It's always the case of what is in it for me from the
yeah,
children's end. And a mother's love is obviously unconditional. She
yeah.
would just give and give and give, but the children would just take and take and take. And this is not even in a domestic violence situation I'm talking about.
Mm.
Even generally,
Just in
now
general, just in
generations
general.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah, things
yeah.
have changed actually. Era
Mm.
you and I are coming from, things were different, totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's they want things now, don't they? It's sort of like the microwave society with our young people. But
Yeah.
that's what we're here as parents, to try to navigate them through, whatever it is that they're going through, and to support them and to mentor them, to let them know that it's not the right thing to do. We're women who are empowering. We're here to empower our young people.
Absolutely.
Because as you say, we don't know what it is that they're going through when they're out there in the, amongst their peers.
Absolutely.
So it's quite difficult to understand, but it's just a matter for us as
It's a
parents.
shame. Yeah, it's a shame, Jacqueline, because you see what in retrospect you've unconsciously done is that you've lost your generation. And when
Mm.
you lose one generation, that means you've lost generations upon generations. And
Mm.
for me, it's not been an easy ride anyway, because I'm a first generation migrant in this country myself. I had
Mm.
to start from scratch. It's taken me 11 odd years to,
Yeah.
be at the stage where I am right now. So
Mm.
all this journey has been for the sake of them, for their betterment, to be able to give them a better opportunity. Because I knew if I was living still in Pakistan, I will not even be able to get a chance to get remarried. Forget
Mm.
about doing anything else, because I'm a
Yeah.
divorce. I've got baggage. I've got 3
Yeah.
children. You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah.
And according to the Pakistani likelihood standards, I'm not that light skinned either. So we've got all sorts of complexes embedded in our culture. It
Yeah.
doesn't come from the religion; it's the culture.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Wow, that's interesting. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, we've come to more or less to the end of our show. It's been very powerful. But I wanted to bring you on just to give other viewers an idea that, abuse does not discriminate. It happens to anyone,
Yeah.
whatever culture, whatever religion, whatever creed, whatever, whoever. and that it's our duty to talk openly about it, because we know that there was a time, well, when we would never be having this conversation. We would never be talking openly about domestic abuse. But we're taking tiny steps, you know what I mean, to talk about it. So it no longer, we have to talk about it so it no longer becomes a taboo subject. And as much as people, when they do talk about it, they talk about the physical side of it. I'm more concerned with, and equally concerned with the other side, the financial side, the economic side, the emotional side. You know what I mean? Being isolated and you know, coerced and things like that. I try to talk more about those sides as well, because if you don't talk about those sides, then, you know, how would anyone know that that's abuse?
Absolutely. And that's one fear factor that keeps a woman in there, you know, the interdependence of the financial element. Because of that as well, they're scared of starting from scratch all over again. So again, the best advice here would be for women to brace themselves, to realize who they are. And, you know, God created them very powerful. If we can give birth, wow, we can move mountains, you know.
Absolutely.
So that's that. And then just work towards, you know, educating yourself, because education means bringing out value, and then the finance, the money is the byproduct of the value that you give out, you know, that you bring out. So that's the key thing there, that educate yourself, stabilize yourself financially, and then, you know, don't take crap from nobody. Have your boundaries in place.
Well, it does start with, I know we're coming to an end, but you know, it does start with having to build confidence and love yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because when you start loving yourself, you'll start to build confidence, and once you build confidence, then you're able to be in a position to say, well, look, I don't need to take that. Do you know what I mean? So
they need to understand you. There is no reason for you to, you know, burden your shoulders with other people's ignorance. And when I say that, what I mean is the unreal expectations of the community, you know, per se, that woman is responsible for making a house. No, it's not one person in marriage. It's two people. It takes two to tango, you know. How one person, you know. So no reason to carry so much baggage. I had the baggage of 3 children anyway, so what was the need for me to carry more people, you know, more baggage, more burden on my shoulders for other people's ignorance? There's no need. Just take it easy, keep it simple, know who you are, know your strengths, know your areas of improvement, work on them, educate yourself, you know, become financially strong, and that's it. You know, say no to abuse. Don't brush it under the carpet. Don't get into self-doubt when you feel uncomfortable. Get in touch, get connected with your intuition. When you're feeling uncomfortable, when you feel there's something wrong, there's certainly something wrong. Go out and seek help.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'd just like to go back to say thank you for those who've contributed to the conversation. Zakaria, she, as I said before, she agreed, and then we had someone. Let's see.
Zakaria is a boy.
Maria said, "Oh, it can happen to anyone. Of course, you need to break the chain and be empowered as women. Confidence boost." And she's also gone on to say, "Oh, early childhood relationships with parents are likely to affect how your relationship is with you."
100%.
Yes, absolutely. Before we go, I know I've said this already, but before we go, what responsibility? Because we're talking about women and young girls, but you know, the responsibility is also with the man. But when we have these conversations, you know, it angers me, because it's almost as if we've, you know, what is that the men should be doing? How should they be educating themselves? Do you know what I mean? I mean, they're the one that's abusing the women, you know, so what is it? Because I know that some men are saying, well, oh, I didn't know that it was abuse. Do you know what I mean? And my argument to that is, well, you know, if you're hurting someone and you can see someone is in pain, then of course you know that you're doing something wrong. So, you know, what should we be saying to our young children as boys? New boys, what would we be saying to them?
So clearly the mother's responsibility is to, you know, give these values to her boys growing older, that look, treat other people the way that you would like to be treated. That's one basic principle. If you follow that, you won't go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you teach a woman, you teach a whole generation. So if that mother teaches one of her boys, that you need to treat others the way you would like yourself to be treated, and the same message gets passed on over generation upon generation, and it creates momentum, it creates a chain, a movement. I see no reason why we'll not be able to change the wrong narrative there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I'm not going to ask another question because I can go on all evening. But I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you for those who joined us in the conversation. Thank you, Hina, so much. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll talk in the future. But for now, thank you for sharing your story and empowering other women and young girls out there as well.
It's my honor to be here today, and I'm just praying and hoping and wishing that my story makes a dent in somebody's life. Somebody's life can be saved, because lives are precious. You only get one life. And the final message, the most strongest point that I would like to emphasize upon is that there's only one life, okay? There's this diagonal one life. There's a past and there's a future. Future is something you can't predict. Past is something that's already gone. It's not in your control. What is in your control is this in the middle, which is now. And that's very, very powerful. Make the best of that now moment, because now is really what you have. Once when that's gone, then again, that becomes a past as well. So don't overthink. Don't rethink. Whenever you're uncomfortable, use the power of now and reach out for help.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so before we go, I've got another couple of comments again here. I think we need to look at the core of why men start abuse like this in the first place and see where it stems from. What is it that pushes an individual to adopt bullying characteristics? We need to look deeper. And I think you mentioned yourself, because maybe they've come from a background of abuse themselves.
Replicating,
Exactly. Maria says men need to learn to let go, let women be, let them strive, let them succeed. It's not about religious control. Not everyone is bad. No, we're not.
Okay, on that, this is very interesting, Jacqueline. Now, Maria, when she says that men need to learn to let go, let women be. So now that's a very interesting debate there. Men don't need to let the women be. The woman needs to take her control back. Once when she's taken a control back, no man on earth can, even come and point a finger at you. You can't ask for them to give your power back. You need to take the power back. You can't ask them to let you be. You need to show them, this is who I am. This is where my safety zone is. You can't intrude here. Your place is there. This is my safe haven.
Because what they fail to recognize is that you have allowed them to take your power away in the first place. So, and as you said, it's for you to take back control, to get back your power. Do you know what I mean? But
And how do you get that? How do you get that? Until and unless you don't realize who you are, how powerful you are within. It won't be until and unless you don't realize that, you won't be able to take your control and power back.
Yeah. And that's why you've got to start loving yourself, build that relationship with yourself, and that will give you the self-confidence. So,
absolutely.
I think that's it, really. Thank you. This was amazing. Thank you very much for your contributions. Well, until next time, I think we better end it there.
Right.
Have a nice evening, and we will talk soon.
Definitely. Lovely speaking to all of you. Lovely getting your messages, guys. Love you to bits. For the sake of Allah, we'll speak to you again. And thank you so much, Jacqueline, for having me on board today. Thank you. Have a great evening. God bless. Bye.
Bye.